Do you feel like maybe you don't make a difference? Just step out and see what God can do through you. He may ask you to do things that you would have never thought of. Stay tuned. Welcome to God Answers Prayer. I'm Linda Tiano, your host today. And, there's a scripture in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 7, that says, "Work for the good of the city to which I have exiled you, and pray to Yahweh, asking for a blessing on your city, since your peace depends on its peace." This scripture is at the very heart of Eli Bransford, who is using the gifts Yahweh has placed in him to make a difference in the city different, Santa Fe, New Mexico. We'll be right back after this. Well, welcome back. I'm here with Eli Bransford, and Eli is a Santa Fean. And, the Lord's, He's had hold of you for a long time. You grew up in a Christian family, right?
Yeah, I sure did. I can remember being probably 5 or 6, and my dad, I don't know why he chose to do it in a corner, but it was like in the living room in the corner, and he knelt down and he explained the gospel to me, and I accepted Jesus in my life right then and there. So, started reading the King James Version because that's all that was in the house.
Right.
As soon as I could read, probably around 6, and kind of grew up reading the King James, and served in various churches in various capacities through my life. Anything from if something needed to be cleaned to, leading teams, or even being a deacon, to, various capacities and
right.
assistance to pastors and stuff. So I grew up in church, and that was of course great and imperfect, because churches are made of people,
right,
that are imperfect.
Yes.
And as I started getting older and reflecting on where I wanted my life to go, I remembered some things when I was younger, when I was going to a church, and I remember I guess kind of an attitude of church is the only place that you serve, kind of thing. And I remember at that time there was a gentleman that was going to be a state police officer, and another gentleman that was going to run for something in the city, some local elected position. And I remember hearing talk of them like, why aren't they just serving in church? Why do they have to go out? As serving in church not good enough for you, that you have to
right.
go out? And I think that idea kind of really took hold in some churches, starting in the late 60s and 70s and 80s. And I don't criticize any of these things in particular. I think they're all good things, but I think when we reject the world outside of us, or don't consider serving in the world outside of us, we can become a little bit of a problem. We build our own, music bubbles, our own Christian bubble, our own television channels like we're on now, our own
right.
friends, our own everything. And we've over the decades created our own church culture, which is good. I don't fault any of those things, but it's when you don't look outside of the rest of the world and say, we should be impactful there as well, I think is where there's the problem. And
I agree with you. And I think that a lot of that finally began to change with COVID. We were locked down, we were stuck, and we realized that we'd been had
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
100%.
And, you know, it was just like, wait a minute, if we don't get out and express our faith beyond the four walls, if we can't walk out what we know in the world, then the world's not going to change. And I think a lot of us said something's got to change.
Yeah, I think that COVID is a good example. I think there are others as well where you can see kind of the Christian bubble that we created in the United States, and then we see what happens to the world in general when we, to a large part, stop influencing things, and how fast morality decays,
Right.
and how fast the moral fabric falls apart. And then what that does is it grows up to come after us. And we've seen that in other countries, you know,
Right.
that are free, where, you know, and we see the attempts here too, where, well, actually, there are certain things that your pastors shouldn't say in church, or maybe you lose your tax exempt status, or maybe even if some would have their way, they even could get locked up for a while. And so we see how that's backfired. And so again, I'm not critical of Christianity, of the you know, the culture that we made for ourselves. I think that's great. Again, I think it's just, we have to remember that we've got to engage our world outside, and sometimes, you know, that is just going out and sharing the gospel, of course. And sometimes that's just being involved. Sometimes that's
Right.
just being involved in your community.
Well, don't you think it also it includes having to revisit the history of what we've been told? You know, I mean, is that what God really says? Is that His heart? And so it's like, where did man come in and try to set these rules, and especially men that really didn't care about the church? So it's it's like, okay, let's see how the Father wants us to be. He wants us to be free. He wants us to speak the truth in love. I mean, all these things that are there, and those are all the things that if we would just step out and do those, it can change lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about Daniel. I think about the prophet Daniel, and I think about his relationship to the government.
Right.
And that in various parts of his life, and even after I guess you could say he retired at one point, they brought him back. Hey, this is a wise man that can help us. You know, he was somebody that loved God, that didn't sacrifice his standards, his morality. He was somebody that loved God, that understood parts of the future. I mean, he was so phenomenal. And we see his relationship to the government and just being an influence of God in that setting,
Right.
in one way or another, and just being involved in his community and being a standard there.
So your family's been rooted in Santa Fe for generations.
Yeah, yeah,
And so you've seen a lot.
yes.
I know that you finally said, enough's enough, I'm going to get out there. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so yeah, I did that in a few ways. I started making some videos that got a lot of traction, and on the surface it can seem a little bit, I guess some people could not completely understand the connection to my faith and what I'm talking about when it comes to local culture and history. But I'm doing my best to represent the truth, and I'm doing my best to resist really atheist, Marxist influences that want to come into our town and tear our history and our historical things down.
Right.
Those things matter.
They
You know,
do.
those things matter. And so I kind of started with stuff like that. I've become a little bit more political. I did my recent video is really a full documentary. It took my friend JD and I about a year and a half to make it. And we're looking real hard at the rise in crime in the city of Santa Fe. And again, back to what you quoted from Jeremiah, to seek the peace of the city that you live in. For in its peace you'll have peace. So Trying to seek the peace of our city, and when you when you see things go from not worrying about locking your doors, not worrying about going to the store at night, to having 2 cars stolen in the same year, to uh, attacks and just violence just start to skyrocket more and more. And we have some city leaders that are saying, "No, it's fine. Everything's probably fine." I, as a Christian man in my community, have something to say about that.
Right.
And so I have, and I continue to. But yeah, so that's kind of where it is right now. But a lot of things planned for the future. I want to partner with some really good historians to do a detailed documentary on the history of Santa Fe, the founding of Santa Fe,
Yes.
What's true, what's not true, because there's a
Right.
lot of fallacies. The word genocide gets thrown around a lot, and what really happened, and all that kind of a thing.
Right. Set the record straight.
Yeah, the truth matters.
It very much so. I mean,
Yeah.
the word tells us you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free.
Right.
And because it disturbs me what our children are being taught in school. And again, that's one of those places that I think parents, citizens have just dropped the ball and let those that have nefarious things in mind for our children take charge. And yet I don't believe that that's what the majority of people really want.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on something. It's I think the time for us to just completely be all trusting and everything's fine with our school system,
Right.
with our local governments. I think those times are over. I'm not saying that we believe the worst of these people. I think a lot of them are good people trying to do their best. But I do think that some of the stuff that's happening locally, as you mentioned, in our school systems and in our local government, there are some forces in there that are not good. And I think not just by Christian standards, but I think by the common person standards.
Right.
And so I think it's time to be vigilant and start. If you have a child in school, look into what they're getting taught, question them, talk to their teachers. Get involved. In the 80s, when I was going to school, I think for a large degree, you didn't really worry. You just trusted that, well, the system's trying to teach our kids how to do math and some history and stuff, and those days those simple days are over.
Well, we were so trusting, and we didn't want to have to think for ourselves. I think we just wanted to move on with our lives, and yet we have to have discernment.
Yeah.
And I think when we get into those stages, we're lulled, and we don't have discernment. But then when it starts coming, we're like, whoa, what is this? And it's like, maybe I'm an evil person because I'm thinking this. But that's, a lot of times, is something that you need to go begin to do some discovering about why.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
So you did one thing, it's Who is Santa Fe? Then that's a series that you're working on.
Yeah, so that's something else. So, I don't just want to be out there, a voice out there that is complaining about the way things are, or maybe calling out some of our leaders or something like that. I want to start with a concept. When you love something, you want to protect it, but you also want to highlight what's good about it. And so I don't just want all of my content to be about, look at this leader and what they should be doing different, or calling out things and talking about the crime and the homelessness issues. I also want to try and build our social fabric back as a city.
Right.
And one of the ways that we do that is we highlight interesting people in the city, or people who are just doing really good things. I interviewed a guy when I started this series, and it's getting kind of a slow start because we're so busy, but I interviewed a double lung transplant survivor who had a double lung transplant twice, Mark Rodriguez,
Wow.
and just how that challenged his faith, and to the dark places that took him, to coming back and having a real, really just repenting to the Lord and rebooting his life and
Yeah.
what he's been through. That's an interesting story. Another one I'm doing is with a girl named Ashley, who is the founder of New Mexico Fight for Life, which is something that's dedicated to eliminating suicide and for support for suicide survivors. So we're doing that as well.
Good.
It's a lot of fun.
Good. Well, if you're listening to this and you are saying, "Oh, I want to know more," well, we'll be able to get in touch with Eli because his information is right there on the bottom of the screen. So watch for it. But also, if you are thinking, "Wow, I'm not sure where I stand with the Lord," ask Him. And just say, "Father, I really want to follow you. I want to know the truth. I want to be free." And if that's you, because truly, the Father draws you to His Son, to Yeshua, and Yeshua is that great gift of love that was given to all mankind. The Father wants you to know Him. And today, if that's you and you are being drawn, please give us a call. The number's right there on the bottom of the screen. It's our prayer partners. They will pray with you. They will love on you. And if you don't have a Bible, we want to make sure that you get one. We'll be right back after this. Well, welcome back with Eli Bransford here. And Eli, you're not just all talk. You actually ran for office.
I've run people for office.
Well, you've run people for office.
Yes, I haven't actually run myself.
Oh, okay. I thought you did.
I may someday, but yeah, I have run people for office that I think are good people. So,
Yeah.
So I've been involved politically
So you're an encourager. You've got that gift of encouraging people to step up and step out.
Well, I know a lot about the background of how to run a campaign. I know how to target people. I know how to use data to do mass political texting and a lot of the rules and the ins and outs of doing social media campaign,
right?
Texting and stuff. You can't just get on there and mass text people politically. You have to be approved to do that in different ways. How to target voters. Just kinds of the ins and outs of how to run a campaign. I've got some experience in that.
Very good. Very good. Well, I hope you do run someday. we need good people in office, and one of the things was like what's going on in Santa Fe, and that was the one that you recently finished up, and it's out there now for people to see. Yeah, and I'm really just targeting my community. I'm not trying to grow some huge YouTube channel. There's already so many people that talk about what's happening nationally. And so for me, one of the ways that this was kind of born was looking at our national scene and being so frustrated and realizing to myself, there's really not much I can do on our national scene. I could target people and create a channel and echo chamber of, a few million people that agree with me. But I thought it was more important, if I can't do something about the national scene, I can influence my community, even maybe a little bit. Yeah.
And so my target is really mainly the city of Santa Fe, New Mexico to some degree, but for the most part Santa Fe. And there's probably about 85,000 people in the city of Santa Fe. And so I started targeting them. And, by YouTube standards, if, you're a 13-year-old girl teaching to do makeup, you'll get millions of views.
Yeah.
I don't go for views, but I do go for views in my home, in my city.
Yeah.
And so across all my channels and all my social media, I have well over 100,000 views. For a city of 85,000, that's not bad.
Very good.
That's
Very
not
good.
bad. So, and some of it isn't all positive, and that's okay. Some of the feedback, I should say, and that's okay.
Of course.
Being part of the internet.
There's always those.
Yeah.
But, it's thinking about Santa Fe, I arrived in Santa Fe in 1988, so I feel like I'm kind of a native in some ways, but
No, I'm
not.
sorry, you just got here.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And, but I mean, there's people that are even newer than me. I mean, it's growing exponentially now.
It is.
And I applaud you for doing what you're doing, because I hope a lot of those new people moving in will see what you're having to say, because sometimes, people come in and they want to change they love what's there, but then once they're there, they want to change everything.
You're making a really good point. There's a difference between newcomers and newcomers in a different way. So the city's going to grow, and we welcome everybody that wants to come to Santa Fe and wants to move here. I love the people that move here. They do what we learned in kindergarten, and they stop, look, and listen, and realize, wait a second, this is some pretty serious historical things around us. This is a pretty historical place. We are the oldest capital city in the United States, and they look at it and they want to be a part of it. That's wonderful. We welcome those people all day long.
Yeah.
But then there's those other people that move in and they say, well, hey, this is all great. Let's change everything. That's a little tougher. That's a little tougher. I mean, Santa Fe is going to change. That's okay. But at the same time, I appreciate the people that move here and they come with respect.
Well, we are who we are because of the history.
Yeah.
And we don't destroy the history, we build up on it.
Right, and it's our bread and butter. I mean, our bread and butter is tourism. We have manufacturing in Santa Fe. We don't have a mine that we mine something, or a big college town.
Right.
Our tourists is our bread and butter, and so some of our, again, start to keep banging the same drum, but some of our city leaders are just preoccupied with slow suicide. Deleting our history, deleting our historical things. And some of these movements even want to change the name of Santa Fe. They want to change the name of our streets. They want to completely erase anything that is historical there, because to them it's offensive. To them, we were the conquerors, and of course the conquerors in today's day and age are always a bad thing.
Yeah.
Even the historic churches that we have there, some of these groups despise. And I've studied them for years, and so I think that needs to be opposed.
Yeah, and it needs to, I think the history books need to reflect some of that too, that the way the children are being taught in the schools. I know there have been people through the years since I've been there that have tried to do that, to make it a little more accurate.
Yeah, I had a history teacher message me a while back, and he said that he was actually using some of my content in his classroom.
Good.
Because he didn't feel that the curriculum was really cutting in. So,
That's
but history
good.
is so important. History is so important.
How can we pray for you?
I guess really just that the Lord would keep me focused and on point, and give me enough time to do what I would like to continue to do, because time is very scarce for me. Also, I guess I would say protection. I've had a lot of hits. A couple years ago, I crashed and split my head open and almost died.
Right.
About a year ago, I lost my wife.
Yeah.
And so there's been a lot of tough things. So I guess just maybe along those lines, I would greatly appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that the Lord uses everything for His glory. It may seem like it's the worst thing that could ever happen, but He has a way of using those things.
Yeah, and I think back to, the name of the program, God Answers Prayers. One of my prayers to God has been, as I've gone through various hardships in my life, and, suddenly and tragically losing my wife, and other things, that the Lord wouldn't let it change who I am, that
Right.
the Lord would keep me.
Yeah.
Because too many people come out of hardships bitter. And
Become bitter.
I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. I want to be who God wants me to be.
Well, I think you're doing really well. Has it been a year ago?
A little bit more.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
There's a softness about you that I think is is a good thing. You know, a tenderness that the Lord is. I mean, I haven't known you that long, but I mean, I just know that situations like that can make you very hard and kind of get into a shell.
Yeah.
But when we grieve and allow the Lord to help us to do that, we can move on. And that may be for somebody out there right now that's listening, and maybe you're going through the loss of a loved one that was very tragic, and it's, I mean, I've been there too, and it's PTSD. I mean, it's a lot of those things that happen to you in the midst of all of that. But you know what? Just draw near to the Lord and allow Him. He wants you to just let it all go. We try to just tough it up and say, I can get through this. No, we need Him. We need Him. And He will help us through it. So I want to thank you for coming and being transparent and bless the work that you and JD are doing, and that you stay on focus and get all those things out there that need to be there. And for those of you today, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for supporting this KCHF TV. Yeah, we appreciate you. We appreciate your prayers. We appreciate your contributions. Without you, we can't do it. We're local. We're just real. So may the Lord bless you. May He keep you. May He lift up His countenance upon you and be gracious to you. May He give you His everlasting peace. That's our prayer for you today. And please, yes, keep Eli and his family in your prayers, and know that you are loved. Shalom, shalom.